Welcome. Today is our Relax into Health, Wealth, and Happiness meeting. It's nice to have you here. So I would like to explore today the, I suppose, real secret to relaxing into health, wealth, and happiness. So the promise is that the true fulfillment of what it is that we most deeply desire is possible, and that it's actually our birthright, that it is why we're here. So that we can really begin to accept that that is true. And really, the invitation is to look and find that for yourself, to see the truth of that. So often we get lost in confusion, believing in other things. So we might think that we have to struggle, and we don't know really what the point of the struggle is, why we're doing what we're doing, and we lose sight of this more truthful revelation, which is, again, that it is our birthright to relax into health, wealth, and happiness, authentic health, wealth, and happiness. I'm not talking about your idea of what health, wealth, and happiness are supposed to look like according to some kind of external uh, criteria that have been accumulated based on some sort of cultural norm, or what the collective believes in the moment, but rather the authentic truth of real health, wealth, and happiness. That, for sure, unquestionably, is your birthright. And so what I'd like to look at today is, as I've said, the real secret to how it is possible to accept that, how it's possible to receive that. So if we are willing to accept, at least as a beginning point for our exploration, the possibility that there may be some truth in what I'm suggesting when I say that authentic, soul satisfying, profound health, wealth, and happiness is yours, that it's actually inalienable, then we can look at this in a useful way. If you are not willing to entertain that as a real possibility, if from the outset you're already dismissing that, then it becomes very challenging. So I'm not saying that you must believe it. I'm not saying that you have to take it on faith, but I'm saying just be open to it as a starting point rather than being closed to it. So just see if you can notice that it's possible for you to make that choice in this moment, that you can either approach this with openness or you can be closed. And this small thing is not that small, I suppose, but this somewhat maybe seemingly small thing of just noticing that you can come to the table, as it were, either open or closed, is in a sense the real essence of what it is I'd like to explore. And we can elaborate on that more. But as again, as a starting point, just see that that much is possible, so that you can actually notice, really, honestly, not just as some thing that's being said, but as something that you can see and be witness to in your own experience presently, that it's a real thing that you can feel and sense and experience and perceive, that you can actually choose openness or closeness. I I hope that you take that to heart, because I mean it sincerely. And if you really are willing to look and see that now, then um, there can be something really wonderful that's discovered through this. So, so that's the starting point, just to see that, first of all, there's an opportunity that's being presented. That opportunity that's being presented is an invitation, which is this idea that it is actually possible for you, and not only possible, but it is actually your birthright, as I said. And also, I would say it's your it's what is it's your purpose. It's what's required of you. It's why you exist. So it's just a big deal, and that is to accept the soul satisfying, profound, authentic health, wealth, and happiness. And then so that's the first thing, is there's an invitation to that. And the second thing is to notice that you can either close to that, which, because of course it sounds nice. I expect it sounds nice. It should sound nice, but and we would maybe think that, oh, if something sounds nice, I should be open to it. I'd naturally be open to it. I'm very attracted to what's nice. But if you look really sincerely, what you'll see, you will discover that there's a conditioned habitual closeness to that. Maybe superficially in thought or in some sort of fantasy version, there's an idea of openness, but the actual experience is closeness. In fact, the idea of openness is the closeness. I'm not trying to be confusing by saying that, but what I mean is that we deceive ourselves through all kinds of means, and one of those ways in which we deceive ourselves is that we call something by a different name. And so we call it openness when in fact it's closeness. And we believe that what we're calling openness is really openness, but actually it's closeness. And you can tell the difference if you just slow down. Instead of thinking about it, instead of allowing the habitual mind movies to play, instead of believing your own self-deception, just slow down and actually observe your direct experience and notice. It's very simple. In actuality, am I open or closed? And if you're open, then there's no mistake about it. So if you have any doubt, then you're closed. The openness is innocent. It's vulnerable. It's defenseless. It's there's no space for anything other than the openness. There's no It's not openness and something else. And so even the notion of something else can't arise in the openness. So there's no possibility of defense. There's only openness. Because defense can only come about when there's already a closeness. There's already a sense that there's me and something else. There's something that needs to be defended and something that needs to be defended against. But the actual openness doesn't have that split. So we know when there's openness because, as I say, there's no doubt about it. There's no need for doubt. There's no room for doubt. There's just simply openness. It's the difference between a closed fist and an open palm. There's no doubt about it. So, maybe you have this experience. Well, you do have the experience all the time, but maybe you notice it sometimes when there's just unguardedness, perhaps in a transition between sleeping and waking, before all of the ideas of yourself and the remembering of what happened yesterday and your plans for today and the mistakes that you've made and all of the things that you need to protect yourself against and all that kind of stuff. Before all of that happens, there's just this openness. So that same kind of openness is always available. We just have to be willing to allow it instead of closing. So those are the first two things. First thing being the invitation. The second thing being to notice that there's a possibility of receiving the invitation with openness or to close. And I'm suggesting that to get the real value, be open. Just choose openness. And you might notice maybe there's a tendency to reflexively close. Okay, but then you can open again. So I'm not saying you have to maintain the openness continuously and eternally to receive any benefit. I'm just saying to notice that you can open. And then maybe there's closing and then just open again. Just to notice that you can open and then to choose that. So as I hinted, or I actually stated, this exploration of the openness is really the essence of what it is that I'd like to explore, because if we accept that it's at least an interesting idea that authentic health, wealth, and happiness is our birthright, then we might be curious. If that's so, why is it that I don't perceive that? Why is it that I don't seem to experience that as a reality? What is it that's blocking me from having the experience that I would call authentic health, wealth, and happiness? I use this phrase, soul satisfying. Boy, that sounds nice, doesn't it? And so you might say, well, what is it that seems to be blocking me from experiencing that soul satisfaction? Well, so I'll ask you to look and see. Of course, I'll I'll do more talking momentarily. I mean, I probably won't stop, but before I give the answer to that, actually look for yourself and see what is it that interferes with you experiencing that as a reality. Why do you not experience soul satisfaction moment to moment? What is the obstacle to that? So if you look, you'll see probably that many times you don't seem to experience that soul satisfaction of authentic health, wealth, and happiness, right? So when you're not experiencing that, what are you experiencing? And we could give many names to that experience. We could call it anxiety, frustration, longing, grief, despair, all these different names we could give to it. Anger has been suggested here. Yes, so many different names. And of course, whatever it is, it's not whatever word we could give to it is not it. It is whatever it is. So the word is just a word that points to it. So no one word is better than the others, but just to simplify, I'll propose that we can use the word fear. Again, I'm not saying that that word is the best word. I'm not saying that that word is somehow the one that captures or the essence of whatever this is best. But I'm saying just to simplify so that we can speak about it, we'll just use this word, and then we can all know that this one word is the same, is pointing to the same thing that all those other words are pointing to. The reason I will use this word is because I think that it does, even though, again, it's not that it is the best word necessarily in all scenarios, but there's something about it that does point to something that I think is very helpful for this exploration. Because if you notice that when I have invited us to explore this openness or closeness, the closeness is whether it's a reaction to or it produces the whole idea of a reaction. It's maybe a little bit of both. It's like a chicken and egg sort of scenario, but that closeness is either a reaction to or produces the sense that there's a reaction to something that's perceived as threatening, right? So as soon as there's a closeness, then there arises this notion that there's something out there and there's something in here, and there's a division between the something out there and the something in here, and the something in here is needing to be protected against the something out there. So to me, the word fear is useful in that regard because it helps to point to that kind of essential quality of this experience, this closeness. So if I let's just test it out. So you can just allow openness. Okay, just allow that openness and notice in this openness, as this openness, and maybe you don't feel that you can sustain it for long, or maybe you don't even feel that you can achieve it completely. That's okay. It's fine, but just to whatever degree and for however long, that's enough just to start to observe and see something about this experience. So this openness, you can notice in this openness, there's nothing that is uh, needed because there's no sense that there's anything incomplete. then again, there's a closing or closedness, and then all of the ideas. Again, I don't necessarily want to suggest that the closing itself is causing the experience that happens at the same time. There's a concurrent experience. We could just say that they are co-arising phenomena, that the closing and the whatever that experience is that occurs concurrently is they're co-arising. But this experience that co-arises with the closing is, you can observe that. So you could notice that this is the fear, or all the other names that we could use, right? So just test this out a few times. Just explore this pot that you can open. And in the opening, there's not a whatever that is that's here in the closing, it's not here. Or we could say maybe it's not a binary. Okay, maybe it's not just that there's either closed or open, but there's a gradation. Okay, so that you can notice, to the degree that there's closedness, then this co-arising phenomenon of fear seems to be strengthened to the same degree as the closedness. And to the degree that there's openness, that phenomenon of fear is dissipated. So maybe there's just partial openness, tentative openness, and then there's still this residue of fear. Of course, then we can easily give our attention back to the fear, and closed happens. But if we allow openness, and that fear starts to dissipate. So I'm just inviting this exploration, so you can just notice this for yourself. So my proposal is that this habit of giving attention to fear, because the fear and the closing are somehow connected, that the habit of giving attention to the fear brings about a strengthening of the closing, which feeds into this vicious cycle of more tendency to focus on the fear, more closing, more tendency to focus on the fear, more closing, tighter and tighter and tighter, and more intensely fearful. And again, I'm using the term fear as a catch-all for all of the other things that have been named and everything else that we could imagine. All of that co-arises with the closing. So because the closing and the fear are connected in this way, and the opening and the dissipation of fear are connected in this way, I'm suggesting that this is a useful, practical thing for us, so that we can start to actually explore this in a useful way that will give us results, that will help us to receive and accept our birthright of authentic, soul satisfying health, wealth, and happiness. So if I say, don't think of a purple striped zebra, you've just thought of a purple striped zebra. I mean, you can't not think of a purple striped zebra, because in order to think about not thinking about one, you have to think about it. So if I say, don't be afraid, you have to first be afraid so that you can not be afraid. So if I say, well, just don't just stop being afraid. It says so simple. You see, well, look, the problem is your fear. I mean, duh. Well, maybe not. Maybe that's worth exploring. So maybe we'll pause there and see if I can come back to this point, but we'll go off on a slight diversion to explore, just to clarify and make sure that this is true, that that the fear is the problem, as it were. So we think that we have all these other problems, right? I mean, we think that the problem is that I have these particular thoughts, these troublesome thoughts, or these troublesome memories, or these bad luck, or me with my bad luck, or it's just the trouble is the world the way that it is. It's just a big nightmarish mess. So many awful things that happen, and terrible people, and bad policies, and bad everything, just dangerous, terrible stuff out there. Or that the problem is whatever we think it is. So many different ways we could imagine imagine the problem, but we have various ideas about the problem. But maybe you've noticed, maybe you haven't noticed. So I'll suggest to you that that way of thinking about it, that way of approaching it, is only serves to reinforce the problem, makes life miserable. It doesn't help anything. Things get worse. So if that's not yet clear to you, then just take a moment and notice that that is true. That the more you uh, the more you seek to define the problem out there, the more you blame others and circumstances for the problem as you experience it, the worse off you are. You feel more fearful, more closed. You feel worse. You feel disempowered, more uh, badness in your experience. So that way of approaching it is just a terrible dead end. Hopefully you've seen that. If you haven't seen that, then I really strongly suggest that you just contemplate that until it's clear to you, because I just think it's so fundamentally important. I mean, it appears that the majority of people are um, are doing that. Let's see, there's something that appeared here. That means, right? Anyway, so that seems to be how most people are approaching life, with this idea, and it doesn't go very well. So again, if that's not clear to you, then I would strongly recommend that you contemplate that as much as is needed until that is clear to you, because otherwise you'll waste your life fighting against a problem, but only making it worse. It's like I've used this story of the rare rabbit and the tar baby, and because it really describes this kind of thing. The rare rabbit wants to trick Brer Fox. He puts the tar baby, made of tar, obviously, on the path where Brer Fox comes, and he hides behind a bush, and Brer Fox comes along, and Brer Rabbit throws his voice and insults Brer Fox, and Brer Fox thinks foolishly that it's the tar baby insulting him, and he wallops the tar baby only to find that he gets his paw stuck. And Brer Rabbit keeps insulting him, and he keeps, hits with the other paw. Now he's got two paws stuck, but he's still got two more paws. So this continues until all his paws are stuck, and he's all completely stuck to the tar baby. And that's basically what I'm trying to describe, how most people are approaching things. So if we keep thinking that it's the problem is other people or circumstances or situation or the government or God out there or whatever we think it is, then we're like the fox who just keeps walloping the tar baby and getting more and more stuck. And better to be less stuck than more stuck. I mean, we start out stuck, but we're better. I suppose we don't start out stuck, but we find ourselves stuck, but we want to we no sense in getting ourselves more stuck just because we're presently somewhat stuck. The more that we continue to foolishly believe that the problem is out there, the more we're going to reflexively fight against it, and the more that will entangle us in the tar. And so hopefully we can all see that. So we think that the problem is all these other things, but when we look more honestly, we can hopefully see that the problem is not those things. So what is the problem? Well, I think what's Brer Fox's problem? Is Brer Fox's problem the tar baby? No. Is Brer Fox's problem Brer Rabbit? No. Brer Fox is his own problem. And so it is with us, so, and this is coming back then to seeing that every time that I'm triggered by the things where I already have these wrong ideas, where I believe that the problem is out there that's being done to me, then all of these impressions, these unhelpful, foolish, wrong-minded, ignorant impressions are enlivened, and there's a tendency to become entranced by them, like Brer Fox is entranced and believes that the tar baby is insulting him, and that his only possible reaction is to assault the tar baby. And so in our lives now, what I'm suggesting is, if we see that this may be true, that all of the problems that I perceive that I have are in fact these impressions that are enlivened within me in reaction to certain things that happen, which then I take to be proof that because something triggers the enlivening of this impression within me, I take that to be proof that the problem is out there, rather than pausing, slowing down, being conscious and noticing, wait a second, what is the actual problem? See, like Brer Fox is going along his merry way, and then he all of a sudden, because some sound happens and there's some thing that he sees in the path, and he puts it all together and it enlivens this thing in him, and he thinks, what I've got to do is hit it. And whereas if there's a slowing down, then there's a recognition, wait a second, what is actually happening here? There's a sound, There's something that's being seen. And that's just what that is. That's nothing to me. It has nothing whatsoever to do with me. It's not my concern whatsoever. What is my concern, apparently, is this thing that's arising within my experience. And that's what I think that I have to do something about. So wouldn't it be wise then to be more aware of what that thing that's arising in my experience actually is? Because when we're moving too fast, as it were, then we don't actually know what it is that's arising in us. We don't have any awareness of that. Instead, we're just a bundle of reactions, unconscious reactions. So like the Brer Fox, he just wallops the tar baby, which is obviously stupid. I mean, we all can see, hopefully, that that's stupid. If you can't see that that's stupid, then you need to contemplate that deeply until it becomes clear that Brer Fox does himself no favors by walloping the tar baby, because it's kind of the point of the story. And but we are like that. That's the point. We are just as foolish, just as unconscious, and we could judge ourselves and turn that into a problem. Oh, woe is me! I'm such an idiot. Poor me. So just more evidence of how unfortunate I am and how I never get a lucky break and everything. The dice are always loaded and everything. But actually, what a beautiful gift to have that opportunity to notice, wow, I was, my unconscious reactions are stupid. They get me into trouble. And they're wrong-minded. They're ignorant. They lack awareness of what is actually happening. So what a great thing, because that means that suddenly I have something new possible. Up until that moment, all that could ever happen would be a repetition of the past, because all that was ever going to happen in this unconsciousness was just the same old, the trigger, the enlivening of the impression, the unconscious repetition of the same reaction. That was all that could ever happen. But in this moment, when there's by grace, something has slowed down and there's some consciousness that can recognize that what is happening here is only getting me into trouble. What is happening here is unconscious reactivity. Then there's a possibility of something new. So rather than taking that as more things to use against myself and feed the fire of unconscious reactivity, I can use that as this opportunity to slow down even more and say, wow, look at this. What is this? What is this thing that has hypnotized me and had me right on the verge of taking a swing at the tar baby? What is that thing? So now we can come back to the point. I think this was the point where I left off, which is to see, okay, so this thing that is happening where I'm right there almost ready to do this foolish unconscious thing that's going to feed into the vicious cycle. It's just going to lead to all kinds of trouble and misery. What on earth is it? Because that surely has to be the thing that's interfering with me receiving my birthright of soul satisfying, authentic health, wealth, and happiness. I mean, imagine Brer Fox is merrily on his way, and he's just going to have a lovely day. It's just going to be the best day. Really, honestly, it's just going to be so terrific. What problem does he have? The world is his oyster, but then this thing comes up and he's triggered into unconsciousness, and then it just all goes south. So like that, we wake up. I mean, again, think about this. You wake up, and before you take on the whole story of yourself and your life and all of your troubles and all of the things, your burdens and all of your obstacles and all of your enemies and all of the bad luck and all of the other things, before that happens, your day is wide open. It is so perfect and wonderful, and you're just on cloud nine. I mean, wow, what a just joy to be. No problem at all. I mean, come on, that's true health, wealth, and happiness. If you judge health, wealth, and happiness from the outside in, as it were, if you start from some objective measurement, which is already bound up by all of your unconscious reactivity and habitual judgments and negative fantasies and so forth, then you can't get to this. Then you're just going to be stuck. But if you accept this and start from the inside out, then you can see, wow, this is really true, what's being pointed to, that you wake up every single morning, assuming you wake up in the morning, every time you wake up into and as soul satisfying health, wealth, and happiness. And it's true. It's not, there's nothing deceptive about this. This is not like a bait and switch. You just have to see that you have to stay with what is true instead of leaping out of it to what's false and then judging and saying that what's true is false. Because if you stay with what's true, then what's true can express. But if you abandon it, if you betray it, then what hope is there? You know. But you just see that there it is. It's every single morning. It's there. And your day is just so wide open in beauty and wonder and joy and happiness and contentment and peace and fulfillment and satisfaction and goodness. And then something comes along and this process starts to occur. Like there's Brer Rabbit hiding behind the bush and he's saying, "You're ugly. You're stupid. You remember all your problems. You're weak. You're poor. Nobody loves you." You know, and boy, it just all this stuff starts getting activated, and you're ready to fight. But slow it down and look and see what it is that is happening actually, because it's not what you think. Because Brer Fox, again, come on, Brer Fox. Think about this. Who eats who? Does the rabbit eat the fox, or the fox eat the rabbit? Brer Fox has no problem here. You see, Brer Fox has lunch if he wants, but Brer Fox has allowed himself to deceive himself. So what could happen, what's possible, is that Brer Fox could slow down. He could notice what's actually happening. He could notice, I have no problem. I'm open. I'm a fox. Sticks and stones can hurt my feelings. I'm like George Bush. I can't even remember. Sticks and stones can, what is it? Oh yeah, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me. Right. So, no sticks and stones being thrown. It's just a tar baby, and tar babies don't speak. So there's some ventriloquist around here, and it's probably Brer Rabbit because he's that tricky fella. So all that, he could continue to have a wonderful day and lunch if he wants. But instead, he deceives himself. And so we're like that, we think about what happens. You wake up and there's pristine perfection, joy, happiness, contentment. And then somehow something happens, and all of a sudden there seems to be these problems. And if you look carefully, what I'm suggesting is you'll see that there's this closing / fear. And we make the mistake of believing that closing / fear is a problem, that it's being done to us, that we're powerless, and that all we have available to us is our conditioned reactivity, and we're off and running. But if we look more carefully, we can see that what is here is actually just this opening, closing, and this connected phenomenon of fear. And so now, practically speaking, what can be done? Well, like I said, if I say don't think of purple striped zebra, too late. You can't help but think of a purple striped zebra. So if I say don't, well, obviously the answer is stop being afraid. That sounds nice, but never helped anybody, right? I mean, that's like, who has not heard that advice? Just don't be afraid. What do you do with that? You can't do anything with that because it's something you have to be afraid in order to even hear that. So it's too late. It's like, what are you going to do? So, but notice that you've got in this whole thing, as I'm painting it, presenting it to you, there's these two connected phenomenal axes, as it were. Okay. So one is fear and dissipation of fear, right? So concentration of fear or dissipation of fear is one. And I'm saying there's not a lot we can do with that once there's a concentration of fear. To say, well, just don't be afraid doesn't work. But because it's connected to this other axis of openness and closeness, we have something that we can work with so that we can actually choose openness. And as we're choosing openness, what happens is the dissipation of fear happens. But if, again, we give our attention to the fear, then the tendency will be to close again and spiral into this vicious cycle. Fear, more fear, more fear, more fear, more fear, more fear. But if we, again, say, okay, let me just give my attention to openness, then the fear starts to dissipate. Now, again, because it doesn't seem to be a binary. It's not just like, this digital thing of on, off, open, close, open, closed. It's not just dissipation or concentration. There's a gradation. Okay. So as we open, the residue of the fear is still there to enough of a degree that if we give our attention to it, then the tendency will be close up again. So I'm long 55 minutes. According to my clock, it will be a little probably different. It'd be 50 something minutes on the recording, but a lot of talking. But as usual, very simple point, which is we can help ourselves by giving our attention to openness and not concerning ourselves with the fear, not trying to deny the fear, not trying to fight with the fear, not trying to do away with the fear, but just noticing that there's these phenomenal axes seem to be connected. And if I am giving my attention to the fear axis, then it just seems to draw me into it. I just get more concentrated fear, more closeness. And the more I struggle with it, the more I'm getting stuck to the tar baby. But I can help myself by opening, just giving attention to openness and noticing that I'm not well practiced in it. So that my tendency will be to go where my habit is. My habit is giving attention to the fear, because all the world is teaching, give attention to fear. I mean, fear sells. Come on, you look at it and you'll see it's true. All this is what everything is. Everybody, they want you to be afraid. They, they, but they do. They want you to be afraid, because when you're afraid, then you buy. When you're afraid, you join their organizations. When you're afraid, you do whatever they say. And if you don't see that that's true, then contemplate it deeply. Holy cow, that's not abundantly clear. Just open your eyes and start to see it, and you'll see how true it is. So, of course, the majority out there, they don't know any better, first of all, and those who know better, they still want you to be afraid. They're not going to tell you the secret, because then you wouldn't be profitable to them. But you're not here to be profitable to them. You're not here to be entertainment for Brer Rabbit. You're here to be yourself, to fulfill your purpose, and to receive your birthright of authentic, soul-satisfying health, wealth, and happiness, which becomes a virtuous cycle. So I'm just saying, stop fighting with fear. Stop giving your attention to the axis of fear. Don't concern yourself with how much fear you have or don't have. Don't concern yourself with being with any of that. You don't even worry about your relationship with fear. Don't let that be, because then you're just setting yourself up for failure if you do that. If you say, "Oh, I've got to, I should be fearless. Shame on me because I've got some fear." Oh, there you go. Now you're sucked back into the vicious cycle. All this judgment, negative judgment, criticism, it's just part of the fear cycle. So forget about that. You're going to have that. It's fine. You're going to have the reactivity. You've got all the judgments. You've got all of the all of that stuff. Fine. Of course you do. That's the starting point. You've already thrown some punches. You're already stuck to the tar baby. Join the club. But the point is, you're never going to free yourself by thinking like that and behaving like that. So to free yourself, instead, give your attention to the openness. Just notice, can I open? To open, I have to be present. I have to notice. I have to actually slow down and observe, and I have to see what is my state. I have to notice what is possible right now, not reacting, but actually, because the reaction is always about is a fearful thing about a projection of what has been and what will be, but to actually slow down enough to be present to what is and to be completely unreasonable in a sense. It's not, you're not trying to be reasonable at all. It's just to say, look, forget about all of that. Just right now, what is actually possible? How open can I be right now? Not demanding perfection and openness. That's just some idea for the future. But right now, can I open more? Can I just be open? Can I allow more opening? Can I slow down more? And then you'll start to see, again, the habit is to do what's, well, the tendency is to do whatever is habitual, because that groove is well worn. So of course we will be tempted to again start giving attention to fear. We'll open, and then we'll be like, oh, how's that fear doing? You look over the fear, you're like, oh no, fear, and then we want to close up again. But don't do that. Just say, oh, I'm just interested in openness. Openness is the only thing that could possibly help me, because openness is the only thing I can do anything with here. It's the only possibility for me. That's it. As usual, an hour for something that could have been stated in less than a minute, but probably would not have been as provocative had it been stated in 1 minute. And I honestly, sincerely know, not even believe, I know, because I experience the truth of it and have for a long time now, that what I'm saying is more valuable than gold. It is the thing that can, as I've said repeatedly, it can open you to receive your birthright of authentic fulfillment, soul satisfaction. And from that, you've of course experienced the authentic reality within of health, wealth, and happiness. And as I said, this is not a bait and switch, because of course you think, oh, it's, relaxing, health, wealth, and happiness. We have ideas of what that would look like, what that would feel like, what that would be externally. And I'm saying, yes, that too, but that happens not from the outside in, but from the inside out. First, we have to slow down, open, be willing to receive ourselves, to be ourselves, to be and connect with that authentic inner health, wealth, and happiness. And the more that we're willing to continue to do that, the more that blossoms, so that it is expressed at all levels. And so there can be no doubt that, I mean, there could be doubt now, but that as this is honestly put into practice, it removes the doubt, so that there eventually can be no doubt, because it's clearly seen that this health, wealth, and happiness is known at all levels, that there's no question about it, that where that, what used to be the triggers ceases to be a trigger, so that Brer Fox can walk merrily along his path, and it doesn't matter that Brer Rabbit is tricking him, because he's not going to be tricked. That's real freedom. That's real happiness. That's real satisfaction, to know that you are already complete, that nothing can diminish that. So that's what I have to say today. Thank you, as always, for joining. And I'm happy to stay on for Q&A if anybody has anything, but I'm going to end this recording now.